Should you pay more for an RTX 5060 in your next gaming laptop, or should you save some cash and get the cheaper 5050 instead? I've compared both in 25 games at 1440p and 1080p to find out. The RTX 5050 and 5060 laptop GPUs both have 8 gigs of VRAM, and this is good to see, as the older 4050 only has 6 gigs. The higher tier 5060 has 30% more CUDA, Tensor, and RT cores compared to the lower tier 5050, but the 5050 clocks a bit higher than the 5060, and I assume that's because it has fewer cores and such to power, as both GPUs run at 100 watts, but up to 115 is possible in some laptops with dynamic boost. More power equals more performance, but also more heat. This graph shows the 3D Mark TimeSpy graphics score from each GPU at different power levels. If we've got these GPUs in thinner or cheaper laptops with lower power limits, the 5060 scores 19% higher than the 5050 with both running at 45 watts. But with both maxed out, the 5060 scores 29% higher than the 5050, so the performance gap gets bigger as more power gets added. Put another way, this means a 5060 running at 60 watts can outperform a 5050 running at 100 watts. So you've really got to consider power limits when buying a laptop. I bought 2 Lenovo locks to make this comparison as fair as possible. Apart from the obvious GPU difference, both laptops have the same CPU, same RAM, same SSD, same battery, and same cooling. And if we find a good deal on any gaming laptops with either of these GPUs, we'll add them to the gaminglaptop.deals website. Save money on your next gaming laptop with that link below. The RTX 5060 laptop in red was using anywhere from 1 to 8% more power at the wall across 6 different games, which really isn't much. This is the smallest difference in power draw I've seen so far between 50 series GPUs that sit next to each other in the lineup. The 5060 laptop in red is better from a performance per watt perspective across all of these games. Basically, the 5060 gives us more FPS, as you'd expect, but because the difference in power draw is so small, it means the 5060 is able to give us more performance for the amount of power it uses. So the 5060 is more efficient. This is also seen in the battery life while running a game. The 5060 laptop lasted 8% longer than the 5050 laptop as it's just more power efficient. More power and more performance also means more heat. The 5060 in red was a little warmer in most of the games tested, but apart from the first game on the chart, the differences are generally pretty small. Although we're comparing these GPUs with a 100 watt power limit, we only saw that get hit in some of the games. I actually noticed that the 5050 in purple was hitting its voltage limit in some titles, which is why its reported power was sometimes behind the 5060. And just like we saw on the spec sheet earlier, the 5050 in purple was reaching higher clock speeds in all of these games. Alright, let's dig into the games next. Apex Legends had the biggest difference at 1440p out of all 25 games tested, with the 5060 reaching a 22% higher average frame rate. Granted, the 5050 still does a good job of utilizing my laptop's 144Hz screen, but the 5060's higher frame rate would mean lower latency and a smoother experience. Marvel Rivals also had an above average improvement, with the 5060 reaching 18% higher average FPS at 1440p and a smaller 11% boost over the 5050 at 1080p, which is a below average difference compared to the other games at this resolution. If you'd like to see an above average difference, then Dying Light 2 has you covered, with the 5060 reaching a 20% higher average frame rate at 1080p compared to the 5050. The biggest difference at this resolution out of all 25 games tested. The 5060 was able to get us 60 FPS at 1440p, which translates to a similar 19% boost over the 5050. Things are pretty similar with ray tracing and DLSS enabled in terms of the performance gap, with the 5060 still around 20% faster. Cyberpunk 2077 was just 11% faster on the 5060 at 1080p and 16% faster at 1440p. The differences were pretty similar with DLSS and ray tracing enabled, and the 5060 wasn't far from the 60 FPS sweet spot at 1080p even with RT on Ultra, putting it 12% ahead of the the 5050. Spiderman 2 had some of the smallest differences out of all games tested. This game runs better with more than 8 gigs of VRAM, and the 8 gigs available to both the 5060 and 5050 is what's holding it back. That said, 1440p was still running close to 60 FPS even without DLSS upscaling, so it's still usable at high settings. Black Myth Wukong, on the other hand, doesn't need a ton of VRAM to run, and at 1080p high settings, the 5060 was 12% faster than the 5050, with a slightly higher 14% lead at 1440p, though at these frame rates, you'd probably want to enable DLSS unless you're after a console experience. FPS actually improves at 1440p with ray tracing enabled thanks to DLSS upscaling, and the 5060 was now 19% faster than the 5050, the third biggest difference at this resolution out of all 25 games tested. Alright, I think you get the idea. Instead of wasting your time talking through the rest of the 19 games tested, I'm just going to quickly skip through the rest of the results on screen now, so feel free to pause the video if you want to take a closer look at any specific game. The reason I test so many games is so that we can get a much more accurate average result from a wider selection of titles, which allows us to draw a better conclusion. In other words, more data equals more better. Let's take a look at the average differences next. On average, over all 25 games tested, at 1080p, the RTX 5060 laptop GPU was 13% faster compared to the RTX 5050 laptop GPU. Best case, Dying Light 2 was 20% faster with a 5060, while some games like Forza Horizon 5 and Spider-Man 2 didn't really see a difference. So it really depends on the game. Stepping up to 1440p, and the 5060 laptop was now close to 15% faster on average. So a bit more of a lead over the 5050 compared to 1080p, but not too much difference really. Here's how things look if we average the FPS from all 25 games together. This makes it easier to visually see the differences between both laptops. The 5060 laptop was averaging around 60 FPS at 1440p with my mix of medium, high, and ultra settings, but the 5050 isn't far behind. So then, is it worth paying more money to get an RTX 5060 gaming laptop, or should you save the cash and stick with the 5050 instead? Prices of both will of course change over time, so check the links below the video for updates and to see if there are any current sales. If we find laptops with either of these GPUs on sale, we'll add them to our gaminglaptop.deals website. We update that every day to include the best sales. So make sure you check it out regularly to save money on your next gaming laptop with that link below. At the time of recording in early October, RTX 5050 laptops start from $1,100 US, but there just aren't good sales on right now. The best 5050 deals we've listed on the deal site so far are from $800 to $900, so cheaper is definitely possible with the right sale. Meanwhile, the 5060 actually starts from the same price right now, though that Gigabyte A16 limits the 5060 to 85 watts. We've had better 5060 laptops for $1,000 listed on the deal site before, so again, better is possible if you're patient, and the more premium options can get quite expensive for the level of performance on offer. From a cost per frame perspective, buying an RTX 5050 laptop for $1,000 provides similar value to buying an RTX 5060 laptop for $1,200. That is, you pay a similar amount per FPS of performance you actually get in games. Likewise, a $1,400 5060 laptop gets you similar value to a 5050 laptop that costs $1,200. So you need to spend about $200 more to get a 5060 that offers similar value. So you could pay anywhere between 15% and 25% more money to get the 5060, which will get you a 15% FPS boost at 1440p over the 5050, or 13% more FPS at 1080p. Is that worth it in a machine that you'll probably be using for the next few years to come? Honestly, I think it sounds reasonable if the 5060 is around that 15% more money mark compared to the 5050, because at least then you get a similar performance increase relative to the extra money you're spending for the 5060. But the 5050 is certainly very capable at 1080p if you're not able to save the extra money. It's kind of like an RTX 4060 5050, but with multi-frame generation and faster VRAM. And I'll compare the 5050 against the 4060 very soon, so make sure you're subscribed for that one. Now, the 8 gigs of VRAM that both of these GPUs have could be a limit in some games depending on the setting levels, especially at higher resolutions like 1440p. But at this sort of price range, there's not really much you can do about that, unfortunately. As the next step up, the 5070 Ti with 12 gigs of VRAM costs significantly more. It's definitely still something to be aware of, which is why I recently teamed up with Steve from Hardware Unboxed to put a laptop's 8 gigs of VRAM to the test. So make sure you're aware of the 8 gig limits by watching that video next.